Katie Weldon, and I'm the Programming Director for the Mississippi Gulf Coast Chamber of Commerce. And I'd like to welcome you to Getting Real About Real Estate with Ms. Stephanie Shaw. The mission of the Chamber is to connect, inform, advocate, and develop, and we're doing that through these virtual events. If you have questions at any time, please use the question and answer box that can be found on your screen, as well as this chat box that can be found on your right. Anything that you put in the chat box, though, is public information, so please keep that in mind. And now I'd like to introduce Ms. Stephanie Shaw, our panelist for today with Berkshire Hathaway Homes Services Shaw Properties. Stephanie is a second-generation realtor who grew up in the family business, Danette Shaw and Company. Currently operating as Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Shaw Properties, her family legacy has served the Mississippi Gulf Coast real estate needs for over 44 years. As the broker-owner, Stephanie has made significant contributions to our industry, serving in leadership positions for numerous local, state, and national realtor associations, and has cultivated some of the top realtors in Mississippi and the Gulf Coast during her tenure. Stephanie, I'd like to turn it over to you.
I'm going to tell you, pandemic, beautiful spring weather to suffer through the pandemic. Yay. So that is awesome. This weather is beautiful. And if we have to get stuck at home, this is the time to be stuck at home, right? I mean, we can get outside. The weather's beautiful. Cinco de Mayo yesterday. Everybody's clipping along. So I am super excited to share my optimism about the real estate market with everybody on the coast this morning. So thank you to the Chamber for inviting me. I hope that this will answer a lot of questions and stay some anxiety that people feel about the housing market when crises occur. And so I am going to go ahead and just jump right in. I think it's very interesting. We buy these homes for all these different reasons, because we get married, because the kids are all leaving and we need to downsize, or we're having a family and we're growing a family, or we're getting married, or we're getting divorced, or it's always a transition point when people are buying and selling. And so when you have these external stressors on top of what already is a transition and a stressor for most people, it just really, really can just add to the uncertainty of what is going on. So in today's world, did you ever think that you would spend as much time as you're spending in the investment that you made? And now more than ever, home has a significant meaning to all of us. I think we felt that before when Katrina hit and so many people lost their homes. It had a very significant meaning to us. So we're a very resilient community. We have been through lots of things in the past. I was talking to Katie just a minute ago. So important to understand where we have been and where we're headed. So in 2001, we went through 9/11, and I'm starting there because that's the year I got my real estate license. And I got a license and was, ready to set the world on fire. And the world stood still. Nothing like that had ever happened before. In 2005, we had fully recovered. The market was incredible on the Gulf Coast, and Katrina washes through. So that's 15 years ago. In 2008, we had an absolute global financial meltdown. 2010, we had the BP oil spill. So we are a very resilient community. Now with this happening, I think it's important for people to know we have been in some very, very difficult times, and to reflect back and understand we have recuperated and recovered from all of those things. And we've done so very quickly. And the market really has not suffered. So we've recovered and rebounded, and know that that's our past and what we have to look at. That's our track record. So we will recover and rebound. One of my favorite quotes is, real estate cannot be lost or stolen, nor can it be carried away. Purchased with common sense, paid for in full, and managed with responsible care, it is about the safest investment in the world. And so this is a Franklin D. Roosevelt quote, and this remains true. Land and real estate, they're just not making any more land. So it is a very sound investment. Now, there are lots of variables that can occur on you getting a return on your investment, such as how long you're going to live at the property. Can you watch your investment, and can you set the goals on when you want to stay or go? Are you more transient with a job or family or whatever the variables are for you? But this is just an overview at this point. So I took numbers because I wanted to kind of show people in a visual that we are not that far behind from where we were in April of 2019. So our closed sales for April of 2019 were 544, and we are currently, as of April 30th, at 424 closed sales. The pending sales last year, this time, were 635. We currently have 548. Active listings last year were 2,491. We're currently at 2,175. And for new listings, this time last year, we had 817, and now we are at 541. So let's talk about this. All these other numbers are not seriously off. The most dramatic off is the new listings. And that is simply explained because people do not want people in and out of their homes. They have taken their homes off the market, or they are on hold just until we get through the worst part of this. So it's interesting to look at motivation. There are some people right now who have to buy and who have to sell. And so here's a situation that people don't think about. We have a very close relationship with the governor and the legislature, the Realtor Association of Mississippi does. And we were made essential personnel. So when all of this first happens, if you think about scenarios like this, if you have a family whose house, a man, a husband or wife, or spouses who have lost jobs, and they put their house on the market immediately, and it's something that we can get sold, if they know 6 months down the road they could be facing a foreclosure or a short sale, and if they get their house on the market now, they save their credit, and when this blows over and they're reemployed, their credit is intact and they can purchase again in the future, rather than a bankruptcy or a foreclosure or short sale going on their credit. So we really have the opportunity to help people. If there's medical staff that needs to move into the area because there's an emergency and we need more people, there's just all kinds of things that really help us to be essential personnel. There were so many transactions pending when this happened. So there were 548. So what happens to those families? So you can see, while there are people in transition needing to get from point A to B, that we need to help them through that process and go ahead and get them closed. So the numbers are not that far off. If usually we have a very strong season of sales, and that usually starts after Mardi Gras. Between Mardi Gras and Easter is when we see it really go up, and then we usually see things taper a little bit after Labor Day or right before then. There's kind of a little breather while everybody's getting situated, and then there's an uptick again for that last quarter. So the good news is we are 4 months in, so we're a third of the way into the year. And we still have 8 months to make up the difference. And so as things reopen, the casinos, there will be people reemployed. It may be a slow process and be a steady increase. The military will start moving their people again. I have neighbors that are contract and military, and I really am using them as a barometer on their movements right now and having conversations with them every day. So I'm very optimistic that we can close, and overall, as we get to the end of the year, it not be as big of a dent to the real estate market as people are kind of probably anticipating. So, you know, there's sales prices and how many things have sold and how many things are active on the market and how many things have pended. But there's so many other variables and considerations in our business. And so I'm going to talk about some things you probably don't hear on a day-to-day real estate level, but they're super important to consider. There's this thing called an absorption rate. And in April of last year, we were at 5.13, and April of this year, we're at 4.1. An absorption rate is if the buyers in our marketplace kept up at the rate they are buying right now, we would only have a 4-month supply of housing, and that would eat up everything that's listed. So that is a low number, and that number was already low before this crisis started, or pandemic, or however you want to refer to that. So it's really important to know that in January, we saw the highest average sale price that we have seen in the last 12 months. So January, February, before all of this started, we were really starting to see a very healthy growth pattern here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And all of the statistics that I'm sharing with y'all, those come straight out of the Gulf Coast, Mississippi Gulf Coast Multiple Listing Service, which I'm a member of. And all of these stats are just on single family properties. So this does not include multifamily, commercial, or vacant land. This is just single family. And so the average list price, you're seeing these starting to increase, and they're up about $15,000 from last year, but our average sales price is not even up maybe what, $6,000, $7,000, $7,500. So we really, as realtors, need to focus on getting the list price and the sales price closer together. When people feel like it is a fair market list price, they make very strong offers. And the difference you see here is when they do not feel that the list price is fair and is more than the market will bear, you will see the average sales prices going down. So that is the one thing that I noticed in all the stats that I did. The price reductions have been the greatest in April, and people have reduced about on average, $23,500 on sales prices to get houses sold. So that is a really big dip. And those would more than likely be the consumers that have their house on the market and they have got to get it sold and are having to do some price reductions. So the days on the market are from when it goes under contract until it sells. And in April of last year, it was at 91. And April this year, it's at 77. So that number has shrunk. I do not anticipate that number to stay low. The reason I don't anticipate that number staying low is because the mortgage process is getting bogged down. When you apply for a mortgage, they have to do employment verification. They have to do income verification. They request your tax transcripts from the IRS. All of these businesses are working on skeleton crews or no crews. And the people are being put into positions where things are really critical. So it will, it may take a lot longer. So your days on market are going to start increasing because the time you go under contract to close is that length of time is going to start increasing. We do a lot of government-backed loans here on the coast, with the VA loans for military, FHA loans for people who need a lower down payment. And there's a lot of rural development loans through USDA. So keep in mind, all of those are government-backed loans. There are absolutely a process and things in place to guarantee those loans. And all of that system is slowing down for the same reasons: verifications, being able to access transcripts, and all of that kind of stuff. So if you are in the process of financing, you may be feeling some frustration right now. Know that there's nothing anybody can do. If we cannot get in touch with an employer, or if a mortgage person cannot verify income or employment, then that is just going to slow the process down. So I understand it can be very, very frustrating, but there's only so much that can be done, so much wiggle room there. So the other thing that I want to talk about, just briefly touch on, is for folks who own rental property out there. And if you own rental property and that rental property is backed by a government loan, then for 120 days after the CARES Act date of enactment, you cannot proceed with evictions on tenants, and you cannot charge late fees or penalties related to the non-payment of rent. So if you own property and you owe, if it is a HUD home that is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, any federal entity that insures the loan, VA, FHA, any of that, you will not be able to evict tenants and charge them late fees. So that is just a good to know piece for folks who actually own rental property and are carry a mortgage on it. Also, something very, very important to understand: the time has come where relationships and experience are of the most valued commodity. Currently, we have appraisals that are being done by drive-by only. So appraisers are having to drive by properties, and they are relying on the knowledge of the realtor. They are relying on things straight out of the multiple listing service. They're relying on, so you need to have fantastic professional pictures, virtual tours. If you're in the process of selling your home and you're currently on the market, you need to make sure your agent has all of these things, because not only to find the right buyer for you, but there's no telling how long appraisers will do drive-by appraisals. And if you're a seller in this marketplace today, you're going to want to make a what you need to know about your house. So any specs, if you have 3-piece crown molding, if you have any special features at all of that needs to be written out. So at such time that an appraiser is looking at the photos and they have a spec sheet of what is inside your house. And great relationships so that you are able to talk to appraisers when they call and be informed and inform them about all of the features of this house, since they are not going into it. All of that matters. All of it does. It can be as simple as the house has wood floors throughout versus 4 or 5 different types of flooring in the entire house. So there are little bitty details right now that are going to matter on these kinds of things. So the reason that I can remain optimistic about our housing market right now is this crisis did not start with the housing market. This is a health issue. And we do anticipate that there will be a pent-up demand and that we will recover quickly. The other thing to keep in mind is it's an election year. And the great thing about having been in this business with my mom for 44 years, I have been in real estate for 44 and I've been licensed for 19. I grew up following her around and I love statistics. So I love to get my head in a bunch of numbers and then put together kind of a story that tells people what is going on with that. And it's an election year. And always, always, always we see some anticipation of what the outcome of elections are going to be. And people are really focused on their homes and health right now and employment. And so I haven't heard a lot about elections. And, but I just want to put that out there for y'all to keep in mind, because as we recover, the other thing that kind of makes the world stand still is the election, a presidential election. So we have that upon us. And that's just a really brief overview of kind of what we've been through on the coast, what the market looks like as compared to last year, what's going on right now, and what I see happening the next few months. And so I would love to dive in and answer very specific questions because, you know, I can talk real estate all day long. So.
Well, before we get to that, Stephanie, make sure that you're putting your questions in the question and answer box or submit them via the chat box as well. But if you submit them via the chat box, please remember that that is public. I would also like to thank our CEO, Ms. Adele Lyons, for being here. And on that note, Stephanie, we do have a couple of questions. Let's get to the first one.
Okay.
It says, what about commercial real estate? If businesses chose to adopt remoting working permanently and sell or don't renew leases?
Okay, so that is a great question, and I'm going to answer it like this. I am not a commercial real estate agent. It is not my area of expertise. It has just never been, it doesn't get me excited the way that residential real estate does. That being said, I predict that we will see much smaller footprints of commercial space. And, you know, it's going to be difficult if there's not the demand for commercial space. Selling or leasing is going to be difficult. So I absolutely will see that we have all realized new things and new ways to do things. I mean, my office, we have temporary hours or hours by an appointment, but the building is closed and it has been since March 15th. And I feel like I am much, much more available and intentional about everything that I'm doing working remotely. I jump on Zoom calls with my agents, with clients, and it is just one-on-one, no distractions. So I certainly understand that, and I predict that we're going to have much smaller commercial space footprints when this all pans out. I think that we're going to have to wait, and those are things that are going to be 6 months, a year out and being answered. Because one thing that I do know, 15 years ago, there were very few houses on the beach, and now there are very few lots on the beach. And so we get this disaster amnesia or crisis amnesia, and we completely forget about what has happened, and people rebound to their ways of doing things and the habits that we all have. But I do predict that commercial will not be as in high of demand. Again, caveat, not my area of expertise.
Absolutely. Another question, Stephanie, is in today's market, would you say it's better to sell or to rent?
I would say it depends on your motivation. Right now, if you can sit tight, I say it's better to hold them. But you have to keep your goal in mind and your motivation in mind. So what would be your motivation for selling? Do you have to sell? And what's your motivation for renting? Do you want to come back to the area? Are you wanting to leave temporarily and come back? And there's a difference in being an investor who rents and being just this being your one rental property that you have. I call those accidental landlords. When you do not buy a piece of real estate with the intention of it being an investment and renting it out, you're an accidental landlord. And if you're in that position, maybe Katie can scoot over my contact information to you so that we could talk one-on-one, because there are so many variables that it comes to property management. I actually own a property management company, but I would want people, if this is the only time they're going to even consider that, I would want them to understand the big picture of property management before they made that decision. And right now, one of the things that I'm seeing is a lot of refinance, talking to my financial people. And what I'm seeing is people refinancing, and they've stayed at home so much now that they're in love with their houses, and they're taking out some money. So they're doing a cash out refi, and they're finally updating the bathroom that they've always wanted to do, or the kitchen, or landscaping, or whatever. I know in my neighborhood, I'm out in Florence Gardens, and everything is amazing. People have done everything, painted doors, pressure wash, landscaping, everything. It looks like a movie right now. And so people are bored. And so I really kind of anticipate that people are going to stay put some. They either are going to fall in love and stay for a while, which is going to then hurt our absorption rate, because we're going to have less inventory on the market. And or else they're going to go, gosh, I don't know what I was thinking when I bought this house, and they're going to want to sell. And so really there's not a lot of gray on that. They're going to love it and keep it, or list it and get rid of it. So let's see what else.
Well, you did talk about investors a little bit, and somebody asked, do you have any advice for investors?
I say hang tight. I think that this is a really good opportunity for you to assess how you are managing your investments. So if you have to go 120 days without income on these properties, can you foot the bill for them and do the maintenance? And is it helping you, or is it really a disadvantage for you? And these kinds of things don't come around. It's been 100 years since the United States has seen anything like this before. And so, it is, if I had investments right now, which I don't, because of different reasons, I would hold. I will tell you that because of this scenario, I will be looking for investments the next 12 months. So I'm ramping up, really watching that market, and we'll see. There's always an advantage in adversity. And you can always help somebody by taking something off their hands. So if you're in a position to hold tight, I would hold and look for future opportunities over the next 6 to 18 months.
That's great. That's great advice. Another question, Stephanie, is we've seen a lot of talk about mortgage deferrals. Can you touch on this a little bit?
Well, the great thing is this meltdown that we had in 2008, it was really driven by the housing market and a lot of foreclosures and short sales and the bubble bursting, so to speak, on prices and that kind of thing. And so the mortgage industry really learned a lot from that time. And so they have reacted and responded by doing mortgage deferrals. I will say this, if you have the money to make payments, make payments. They're just going to defer this and tack it onto the back of your loan, and it's going to cost you more down the road. But if you cannot make your payment, what a blessing it is to have this option. So don't just use this option because they give it to you. use this option because it's absolutely something that you have to do.
That's great advice. And absolutely. Another question, Stephanie, is, unfortunately, the layoffs are happening. People are getting laid off. So what advice do you have for someone who's maybe wanting to make a career change to real estate? And how do you know if that's maybe a good fit for you?
So I will say that that's always a really tough question for me. Real estate is not about houses, it's about people. And so if you love people and you have the energy and you like the challenges that are thrown at you on a daily basis, if you're easily bored or up for challenges, then I would say yes. I will tell you this, and I tell everybody I talk to about this. Had my mom not already had an established real estate company, I would not be in real estate. I was very fortunate to be able to come in to an already established, well-respected company on the coast. And so that was a natural transition for me. It is not a natural transition for most folks. And people think that all you do is put a sign in the yard, do some internet marketing, and get a check at closing. And that is simply not the case at all. It takes, in a really good year, you need to not expect to have any money for a year when you get into the real estate business. There is, if you accidentally have beginner's luck and have a nice sale up front, that's great. And it's not an instant gratification business. It's growing a sphere of influence. It's nurturing people, and it's doing things other than just real estate activities every day. Being very involved in the chamber like this, being very involved in the community. And so I'm very happy, again, if Katie, if this person wants to send information, my email address is not on there, but if you have contact information and you want to send them my contact information, I'm happy to talk to somebody about the real estate business one-on-one. There's so many variables in it.
Anybody who's interested in contacting Stephanie one-on-one, please email me directly. My email address can be found on our website at mscoachchamber.com. So if you want to get in contact with Stephanie, shoot me an email and I will definitely send you her way. Absolutely. And Stephanie, that's so nice of you. Thank you.
Yep.
Let's wrap things up with a little question like this. So, thoughts on all the cleanup and fixing up people are doing in their homes. I would think this is a good thing, but do you have any tips for people who are thinking they might want to sell in the future? Anything that they can do to spruce up their home right now?
Wow. Okay. So one of the biggest, the biggest competition an existing residential home seller faces is new construction. And the construction workers and builders were also deemed essential personnel, and they are working day and night, it seems, to build new properties. So my best advice to you is to make sure that you are dealing with someone who is very skilled in marketing, has great tools, understands what is happening. Meet with them and have them do a walkthrough on the home. I'm talking about you need to compete with model homes. If you are anxious to sell. Now, if you have time to sell, that's something else. And also communicating that. You really have got to have a relationship with a realtor and communicate your motivation. It's crucial for us to be able to help. So if you want to get a home sold in today's market, a buyer needs to be able to walk up to the door. And I'm talking about down to the detail of those silly plastic doorbells that are all cracked and turning yellow, changing those out to something nicer or replacing it. I know a lot of folks have gone to Ring and stuff now, but I walk up to houses all the time where they just have the doorbell. The first thing you go to hit is all cracked and broken or just wires hanging out. So walk outside the house and start from there, and walk through your house like a buyer would. And would you buy the house? And you have to really step back from the emotional attachment of your home and say, hey, what needs to be done? What does it smell like when you walk in? Carpet, flooring, all being the same versus every room being a different thing. Is it an open floor plan? There's not much you can do about floor plan, but you can do stuff about the landscaping and the curb appeal. And making sure that if you are putting a home on the market, that you are using professional photography, or that your agent is, virtual tours. That is going to be crucial going forward. And the reason I focus on that is if we do have a second wave of this pandemic, which is what is predicted, then you're going to see this all come around again. So for the rest of this year, neutral paint colors, cleaning windows, cleaning porches, here's the hardest part right now. I have decluttered every room in my house, it feels like twice. And what do you do with all that stuff? Because none of the donation centers are open right now. And then when they do open, they're just going to get hit like crazy with all these donations. So I'm maybe designating one space in a room that is your donation kind of center stuff, and getting everything else show ready. It is essential right now in our world more than ever. The minute you put a home on the market, as soon as we list it and put it in the MLS, those pictures go out to millions of people. And buyers have parameters set, search parameters set, and realtors have search parameters set looking for things. So that is the first 10 days is absolutely crucial. Probably the first 3 or 4 days now are even, that number's even reduced more because people have the time to be online and shopping. So I recommend sprucing everything up, deep cleaning, which you're going to want to do anyway, and then working with a company or an agent that has the knowledge to navigate what the uncertainty of this market and pandemic look like in the future is super, super important.
Stephanie, this was all great advice and much needed. And, as I spoke earlier, buying a new home, you think you know everything and you know nothing. So I really appreciate you and your membership. We just appreciate you so much. For everybody out there supporting us, we really appreciate you coming to these virtual events. Tomorrow, Coach Young Professionals is actually hosting a virtual event. Coach Young Professionals Inspires with Dorothy Wilson, who is also our chamber president. So please join us for that. That's at 10:30 a.m. tomorrow, and you can register via our Facebook page. Stephanie, any last thoughts?
Y'all, hang in there, stay safe, stay healthy. Don't give up. This is not the worst thing that has ever happened. This too shall pass. It will. And we will be out there and back at it before you know it. So really my biggest thought and hope for our community is just to stay healthy and keep your mindset straight. And I'm available. I've got my number for my office. I've got my number for my cell number posted. And, if anybody needs anything, any way that I can be a resource, I will say it is so important. We all have CPAs. We all have doctors. We all have attorneys that we rely on. And I really wish that folks would put realtors in that category and have us as a resource rather than a transactional driver. And so I hope that I can be that for our community. I have agents that are absolutely cream of the crop wonderful, and I hope that we could do that and be of service to this community, especially right now.
The work you're doing is so vital, and we appreciate you and your team so much. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank
If you
you,
have any
Kate.
questions, absolutely. If you have any questions about the chamber, if you'd like to join, please go to our website at mscoachamber.com and send us an email, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. And on that note, thank you so much for attending our Getting Real About Real Estate with Miss Stephanie Shaw. Stephanie, thank you so much again. Everybody
Thank
have
you,
a great
Kate.
morning.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks so much.
Bye.